Was this really necessary?
Well, if you ever get kidnapped, you won't be able to tell anyone where you've seen these cars. Hold them. Wait there. Let me open the door.
You're bloody paranoid, man. I don't know why. It stinks in here. Why does it smell so bad?
Mind your step.
What?
Mind your step.
What? Ah! Really? You couldn't have told me? You couldn't have told me?
I did say mind your step.
Why is it so tight? Why does it stink so much? It's still smelling even though I took it off.
Let me have a look. Oh, sorry. That's my underpants.
Are you taking the mick? You drove me for half an hour with underpants on my head just to hide the location. You're watching Car Nitty. My name is Mizan, and today I've got access to a very private collection of cars, which are mainly BMWs. Now, at this moment, I want to thank a few people. I obviously want to thank the owner for trusting me to see his unit, seeing the cars, because this is going to be a great video. But I also want to thank you guys behind the camera, because you are the guys that are watching my content, liking it, sharing it, subscribing, and I can't thank you enough. It's because of you guys that opportunities like these are presented to me, so thank you for that. This is the first car of the collection that I want to talk about. Now, before I get into this actual car itself, let's talk about the model of the car. Now, this is an E31 8 Series. Production was from 1989 to 1999, and this is the first generation of 8 Series, and this is where the obsession for BMWs began for this owner. It started with one of these, an E31. Believe it or not, this car doesn't live inside the unit. I find that hard to believe, but this is his weekend car. I say weekend, but he drives it whenever he fancies. And I love that because these cars are meant to be driven. They're not just about storage. So I'm really happy about that. Being the 840 Ci is actually the base engine choice. Now, there is a rumored 830 about, well, the fact that BMW created one, but not much is known about it online, I'm afraid. And we definitely didn't get one here in the UK. It's got a 4.4 naturally aspirated V8 engine, and this particular one is paired with a 5-speed automatic transmission. This car, as you can tell, is very special because of the color. It's because this is an 840 Ci Sport Individual. The thing that makes this car individual is the paint job. It's called Santorini Blue 2. Then 2 is important because there's 2 versions of Santorini Blue, so bear that in mind. Then on top of that, the interior is finished off in champagne. So this car is very unique inside and out. Only 3 Santorini Blue E31s were brought to the UK. Now obviously this is one of them. The second one, the owner tracked down. He found out who owns that car. So Lenny, hope you're enjoying the video if you're watching. The third one is unaccounted for. Now if you are someone that knows or you are the owner of that third one, please get in touch. We're about to step into the unit so I can show you the rest of the cars. Now I want to apologize before I go in because space is a bit of an issue there, so where I put the camera it might not be the best angle. The second thing I want to apologize for is the lighting. Again, I can only deal with the cards I'm dealt, but hopefully we'll be able to get some of the cars out for a road review and you'll get to appreciate the full beauty of those cars soon. So let's get into the unit now. Here's a bit of deja vu. We've got another E31 in the unit. Now this is the second one out of 5 he owns. This one's finished in Mauritius blue with grey leather interior. Now the one outside, as I mentioned, is Santorini Blue 2. This one's Mauritius Blue. Then we've got another 3 more to account for in the collection. One is a donor car, sat right over there, which I'm going to talk about what it's a donor car for. Because the fourth one is having an S62 conversion. Now if you're unaware, the S62 is a 4.9 litre V8 taken out of the E39 M5 and the BMW Z8. So he's getting an E31 shell and he's putting the engine into it. And there's a donor car for that project in case he needs parts. And then on top of that, he's got another grey one in that same garage just sitting there for whatever reason. I don't know why it's not here, but it's not here. So in total, he's got 5 E31 8 Series. So you might be thinking, why has he got so many E31s? I mean, how many does a man really need? But the honest truth is, he's got every single configuration possible. The Santorini outside is a V8 and an automatic, as I mentioned. This one is a V12 and it's with a manual gearbox. Only 102 of these V12 manuals were ever built, and it must be a completely different driving experience to the V8 automatic outside. So I do understand why he's got more than one. It's worth noting that even though this is the 850 Ci, it's actually not the flagship car. Now, there was no M8 of this generation, although there was a prototype, but it actually never made production. But rather, the flagship engine or flagship car is actually the 850 CSI, and although that doesn't wear an M badge, it is actually made by the M division themselves. The engine was built by the M division, etc. So it is an M car, but it just doesn't have the badge. And here's the other E31 in the unit. It's the donor car I mentioned. This one in particular is an 850i. Now, this one looks very sorry for itself, doesn't it? It's in a right state. But don't feel too bad, because this car is going to give birth to a very special car once that project is done. The owner of the car has already done a video about that project. I'm going to put a link to that video in the top right hand corner. Check that out if you want to know more about it. Imagine having an 8 Series lying around as a donor car. That's crazy to think, isn't it? I think most people would take one of these as a museum piece on the driveway, because I think I would. Now it's time to meet the longest resident of the owner's collection. This car has been with him for 6 years. This is the longest one that's lived in this unit. Now, this is the E24 635 CSI. Now, this car is the predecessor to the E31 8 Series I showed you earlier, but it's not the direct successor, the E31, to this, because this is a 6 Series and that's an 8 Series. The 8 Series is a few classes above it in terms of performance and engine, so you got more, as well as the fact the price tag of the 8 Series was a lot more than one of these. So although it is a replacement, it's not a direct replacement. This car was in production from 1976 to 1989. That's a very long production run. And this car was exclusively available with a petrol straight 6. There was no other choices. Now the engine size would vary from 2.8 litres all the way up to 3.4. Now this is obviously a 635, so it's got the 3.4 litre engine underneath. It's also worth mentioning that this car, the 6 Series, is a coupe variant of the E28 5 Series. This particular car is finished in bronzite, which I think looks very good for the era. You can tell this is an 80s car, and it's got brown leather interior. Now when it comes to these cars, there's two versions actually. You've got the Highline version and you've got the chrome version. This is actually the chrome version. Now the way you would know which one you're dealing with is by the bumper. The rear bumper, as you can see, has that level, that's chrome, and it runs all across the rear end. Now the Highline version doesn't have chrome, and it actually ends halfway on the side. Don't worry guys, I'm sure some of you were thinking, when am I going to show an M car off? And there are some residents here that are M cars, and this is one of them. This is an E61 M5. Now this car is particularly special for two reasons. Number one, it's a touring. This car is very uncommon to be found in a touring. Most of them are saloons. And the other reason, which isn't really why it's uncommon or common, because it's normal for every one of them, but what sets an E60 or E61 M5 apart from any other car is the fact that it's got a 5 litre V10 under the bonnet. Just think about that for a second. A V10 derived from BMW's F1 team at the time. So the idea of an engine derived from Formula One in a road-going car, something like an estate or a saloon, is mind-boggling to me. I can't believe that this even happened. This is before Audi put a V10 in the Audi S6, S8 and RS6. So what a crazy world we live in. What a crazy world. I say that, but what a crazy world we used to live in, because sadly things like this just don't happen anymore, do they? This is my favourite car in the collection by far, purely out of the absurdity of it. For no other reason, the fact that it's insane to think that this estate carries a V10 under the bonnet. I can't wait to get my hands on this one on the road, I tell you that. This particular car is paired with a controversial 7-speed SMG gearbox. We did not get the manual here in the UK, so we have to put up with that. It's a robotized manual gearbox, and it does take a bit of know how to deal with it and know how to work with it rather than fight against it. It's still a manual, but it's being robotizingly, if that's a word, controlled. I don't know how I meant to word that, but I'm sure you guys know what an SMG is, all right? This car is honestly a mechanical marvel. You know how people talk about medical marvel? Like, this child wasn't meant to be born in the world. There were so many things. This car is a mechanical marvel. It shouldn't have been made. That's not its truth.
What are you doing?
I'm just checking if there's a hole in the roof. How? Did a tsunami blow this car in here? On a serious note, I was actually wondering how this car made it in this unit. I mean, there may as well have been a hole in the roof, because how does a TT end up in this? I mean, look, it's even backed in the corner against all these BMWs. But now, on a serious note, it's the Audi Quattro Sport. Now, this car hasn't even got the amazing 3.2 litre engine, which everyone knows I love. It's got an ordinary 1.8T, but it's not just a normal 1.8T. It's obviously a 4-cylinder engine, nothing special there, but this car produces 240 brake horsepower and 320 Newton meters of torque. Now this car is special for one reason only. weight reduction. This car has not got any rear seats, barely has any door cards, and the battery was taken from the front of the car to the rear for weight distribution. And it's crazy to think that this car made it into the heart of a BMW fanatic like the owner, because who'd have thought this would be in this unit? I'm surprised it's here. So how can you tell when you come across a normal Audi TT and one of these? These have got a two-tone paint. The roof is a different color to the body, and it obviously has this ducktail spoiler. On top of that, it's worth mentioning only 800 of these were ever brought to the UK. So they are fairly special. Back to BMWs now, and it's another M resident of this unit. And it's an M car that we're all very familiar with. It's an E46 M3. Now this one is particularly special because it's finished in Estrel blue, which, although is a very common BMW color, I don't think I've ever seen one on an E46. So I think that this is an individual color. This color was quite big on the E36 M3s. This color is actually stunning, and I can really appreciate this color. And you guys might know that I own a BMW M135i. I have that car in Alpine white, and Estrel blue was an option to have on that car. So if I really wanted, I could have held it and got one, but I chose not to, because this color you see on a lot of F series cars, like a 120i M Sport. But on a car that on this age, this color looks really vibrant and good. You can tell it's special, even though it's not special now. The E46 M3 has a marvelous engine under the bonnet. It's a 3.2 litre naturally aspirated straight six called the S54. One of the best straight sixes ever made by BMW. Now, this one is not paired with the controversial SMG. This is actually a 6-speed manual. So what a spec, the beautiful color, and you got the manual gearbox to match it. Since he's bought the car, he's barely put any miles on, and I'm sure you can see by the private registration that it's got someone's name on it. That name is the son of the owner of the car, and he intends to give the keys to this car to his son as soon as he graduates. So he's about 7 years old now. He's got a long way to go before he actually graduates. His father said he can graduate in any subject of his choosing, but once he gets that piece of paper rolled up with the knot around, I don't even know, I didn't graduate, but when his son gets that in the hand, he's also going to get the keys to this car, and the private registration is also there waiting for him. I'm sure you guys can see there's a trend here in this unit. I mean, obviously most of the cars here are BMWs, but what about the fact that most of them are coupes, flagship coupes at that, and this car is no different. This car is actually not that old. It's a BMW 650i. I've actually reviewed a BMW 645 on the channel, and I put a link in the top right hand corner for that. Now, what's the difference between that car and this car? They're essentially the same car. They both have an N62 engine. The main difference is that one's got a 4.4 V8, this has got a 4.8 V8, and a few things were changed internally, so this engine is a bit more stronger than that one. This car at the moment is not a classic as such. These were quite cheap on the second-hand market, so they were quite affordable, and the ones that people did buy racked up mileage. They have failed rod bearings, etc. So they're not really on the roads as such. So the ones that have been well looked after and put away, they're soon going to be collector's cars. And this one is particularly special because of the color. I don't know how it looks on camera, but this color is called velvet blue, and it looks more violet than it does blue. I'm glad that this car is going to be worth something soon, because right now it's not worth a lot, but I can see this way heading towards the same way as the E31 did, because even they weren't regarded as classics for a long time. It took its time to hit that pinnacle. It's also really, really refreshing to know that the owner loves his old school BMWs. I mean, look how many E31s he has, but he still likes Bangwell era cars. Both worlds usually don't go hand in hand. They honestly hate the Bangwell era cars, but I'm so happy that something like this has made its way into the collection. And what do we have here? Just a BMW 320i. Nothing special, right? Well, it's actually an E30, the second generation ever of a 3 Series. The 320 is not exactly an exciting engine, is it? I mean, in this car, you've got the M3 which sits above it in the lineup, and then you've got the 325i, which is the one that people want. But this car is still a straight 6, so it gets a thumbs up from me on that. There's some 4-cylinder choices out there, so the fact that this is still a 6-cylinder is good enough for me. The prices of these have gone up ridiculously in the recent years because everyone seems to want one. And I can see why. They look classic, they look elegant. I mean, this was a convertible. I would love to take the roof down and go for a drive. Even though it's not particularly fast, I'm told that these cars are very easy to work on as well in terms of mechanically. So someone with minimal knowledge is able to really learn things and do things themselves. And that might be the reason why they're so highly sought after, because they're project cars that the average enthusiast can actually physically work on themselves. And finally, we've got the last car in the unit. And again, it's not a BMW, it's an Alpina. I don't want anyone telling me that it's a BMW because it's not. Typically speaking, Alpina have never been under BMW ownership. They have been a family-run business and they had close ties to BMW, but were not actually under their ownership. It's sad to say that recently the business has been sold to BMW. If you wanted a BMW and you wanted a high-end performance version, the M car is the natural choice, right? But what if you wanted a M car but for it to not be so track focused and be all about performance, you were all about class and comfort? Alpina is the brand for you. And this is what they were really good at. I mean, being a privately owned company alongside a giant like BMW, they still managed to get their brand out there and have their own identity. And I applaud them for that. And I'm actually sad that they've sold to BMW, but at least the brand is still alive. That's the main thing. This is an Alpina B10 V8. Now, this car is based off of an E39 5 Series, specifically the 540i. But Alpina took the engine out of this and brought it up to 4.6 litres of displacement. Cars that wear this crest instead of the blue and white crest that we're all used to tend to hold their value better because of the limited production run and the high cost when they were brand new. That's it, guys. That's all the cars in this unit. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please like, comment, share and subscribe if you haven't already. And tell me which car you want me to drive. See, out of all the cars that I've shown you today, I'm probably going to get my hands on the Santorini Blue 840. Reason for that is it's already insured, taxed, everything. It's ready to be driven, so I'm probably going to take that for a road test. Now, after that car, which one of these cars do you want to see? I personally want to get my hands on that M5. So come on, guys, make it happen. If you want me to drive the M5, say it in the comments. If you want me to drive any other one in this unit, say it and we'll make it happen. Even if you want me to drive the donor car around this industrial estate, we'll push it. We'll do anything you want, all for your entertainment, all right? But before we end this video, I can see there's an upstairs here. So why don't we have a look what's up there? So what have we got here? It seems to me that the owner set up a bit of a clothing business upstairs here. So we've got the cars downstairs and he's got a bit of a business upstairs. And I'm told by him that he wanted to make use of the space. He's obviously got the cars downstairs and he thought, why not make some income out of the unit rather than it just hold his cars? But you know what I think? I think that's just a lie. Reason for that is his wife probably tells him off for spending way too much time in this unit. So what way to justify his time? By saying he's got a business going on here. He's got a clothing brand, as you can see, and it's in the name of his son. So he's got his own clothing brand. You should check it out. This is a nice t-shirt, I wish I had one. Oh wait, I do. Let's cut that out. Oh, cut.